Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started. Hopefully everybody can see my screen. It's showing right now the eligibility request page, which in order to have access to this, you'll have to go into Manage Users and give permission to the users that need to have access to it. There's two permissions for it. There's a View and an Add Change. The View allows anybody to come in here and review the report that comes back, and the Add Change is for people to actually do the processing as well as show the email listed here. It works the same way as how our claims and encounter process works in that regard. So those of you that have those set up, you can probably mimic how you have it set up for claims or encounters. So under Tools, you'll see this new eligibility request option. And when you go in there, you'll come to the screen I'm on right now. And those of you that do claims and encounters are going to realize this is very similar to the look and feel of how that process works, and it is. So the first thing you're going to do when you come in here is you have to select the month and year that you want to send. So I would choose, you know, October of, my system's a little slow on our release here, our internal one. And you can send it as far back as a year, up to the current month, and it will send all of the information to the state to request their benefits and eligibility information behind the scenes. So if I choose, let's just say I'm going to go to March of 2017, and you'll see these error messages over here telling you have to fill those in. And then the next step you have is that you can choose to send which programs you want to do. And all programs is default selected. But you can pick and choose any of the programs that your agency provides. It shows the programs that are used within the date range selected. So when you change the date range, the programs could change, especially those of you that stop serving certain programs at certain times or just start serving different programs now. It will show you programs including all of the waiver ones. If waiver PB was used, it would show up here. The TCM, the NIFTY people, the ICOs are all going to show up in here. All of those are eligible to be able to send as a eligibility request to the state. And in the user guide, it talks a little bit more. I'm going to bring that up right now as soon as I find where I put it. Oops, I didn't open it up yet. Just a second. One moment. I had them up in something else, and that something else died on me. So in the status user guide is where we've put the eligibility request. So for lack of a better place, because it's kind of related to your status records. So that's available from the help menu in Compass, and it's up to date now. So you can get access to this and print this out if you'd like. And then I'm just going to click on the shortcut in the table of contents to get there. And it talks all about what this is for. It's to send eligibility benefit inquiry files to the state to retrieve back the response files from CHAMPS so that you can compare the CHAMPS data to your Compass program status records. And it will generate, you can generate a report after that 271 is processed to compare your program status records to what the state has in CHAMPS for eligibility. So you can find eligibility issues that way, and it is limited to the year time frame because CHAMPS won't allow us to send dates over a year old, and the system will limit you to choosing anything over a year old. And then you do have to have agent information to send 270 files. I know there's one agency out there that doesn't use the claims encounters that will probably have to put something into agent information. So that's under the agent-specific data agent under the tools menu to put that information in if it becomes missing in the future. That's the same with claims and encounters. So if you do claims and encounters right now, you're set because that's already set up. So you come to the screen, it shows you in here about that, showing about the date ranges. If you don't have anyone with add change permission in the inside for that has the eligibility request add change permission, their email addresses will not show in that list that I just showed you, that little grid. And so it's going to replace that text with this red text if there's no eligibility users with email available for selection. The email is only there to alert you that the 271 request has been processed. So just like claims and encounters work in that regard, it's the same type of email. And then lets you know that you can go back in the system and retrieve the report. Then the first step of the process really, after you select programs and the date range, is that we're going to check for missing Medicaid IDs. And when you select that, the missing Medicaid ID button pops up down here. I don't know if you guys can see my full screen, but I hope so. And you're going to want to click that. This is similar to unverified bills report. Before you start, you run the unverified bills report. Same thing with this. You're going to run the missing Medicaid ID report. And the missing Medicaid ID report is going to look something like this. So it's going to show you by program group the name of the one selected. Of course, it won't show you everything if you didn't select the program. It'll show you their name, their social number, and their date of birth on the report. And all this means is that they will not be included in the submission in the 270 file in the background that's going to go to CHAMPS because we don't have a Medicaid ID. We have to have the Medicaid ID. So make sure you clean those up if you want to send them, if you have them. If you don't have them, they just can't go. So once they're entered, you could go enter them right now at this part in the process and then go back into eligibility requests and continue on, clicking the missing Medicaid ID report. They should drop off, and that means that when you finally start processing the 270s, then they will now go. So it is very similar to the process of the unverified bills report. So when you go to process, what will happen next, let me jump back over here and show you. You'll have this new button, send 270 eligibility requests here. That is the button that's going to kick off the process. I'm not going to do that right now for training purposes, but when you click this, it's literally going to change the status up here to tell you that it's in process, and it's checking data and submitting the 270 file. And at that point, you can leave the page. You can go somewhere else in Compass and move on about your life, or you can click the refresh button that will show up at the top to keep updating to find out that it actually is done processing and that it's complete. Once it's done submitting, it's going to show the batch in the eligibility request batch list below. So let me bring that back up so I can show you here because I have to scroll down. But that's down here. And it's going to show you the batch identifier it assigned to it, the date that it got sent, what period you selected, what programs you selected, and then it's going to show you the number of 270 files sent. We can only have 99 requests per 270 file. So every time we get past that point, then we have to start a new file. So that count will be raised depending on how many people are included in your submission. And it also breaks everybody up every 3 months because we can only send 3-month increments. So if you send one person for the full year, that's going to be 4 records in that file. So that's how it easily can get past 99. So it's going to tell you that there's 5 files sent in this case. And at that point, there won't be any 271 files in this box here. And you'll know that it's sent, but we have not received any files back. So it'll look like this on the report or on the screen. So it'll have a 0 here, like it says in the user guide. And it also won't have these PDF and XLS links show up in the eligibility report column because it's not ready to run. So at the first point of submission, that's what it's going to look like until the 271 files come back. Those are going to come back automatically and be processed. We check, I think, every 10 minutes in the system for when those come back. Generally speaking, the files are returned from CHAMPS between noon and 1 and then about 9 p.m. every day. So they don't send them all day long. And so you'll have to wait until those come back to continue on and get the information back in the report. And you'll know that because you'll either have gotten the email or you'll just go back into the eligibility request area and you'll see that this count now matches what was sent. Once the count matches what was sent for the received versus sent, then the report will be available for you to run. That request batches also shows the whole history of everything you ever submitted. So you can see here in my example that we've sent so far 3 different batches in our testing, and these 3 batches are for various things. You know, the first one, well, actually the first one is down below. It's the most recent one submitted on top. The first one we sent was just for March, but we sent it for a lot of different programs. And then we sent another one for just the waiver ineligible people, but we did it for the whole fiscal year to date. And then we sent all the waiver Y from for the first or the second quarter of the fiscal year. And so you can, do however you want in here. As soon as you get one submission submitted, you technically could go create another one and start again. You do not have to wait for the 271 files to come back before you start another one. You just have to wait for the submission of the initial 270 files to be created, which it will tell you at the top. But once those 270 files are created, it's going to come back looking like this again, and you can click the button again and change this up or whatever, however you want to change to submit a different type of thing. So you could submit a lot of different things in one day, and then tomorrow you're going to get all of those back, and you'll be able to review the reports on that. Okay? All right, so let me go back to the user guide. So the eligibility report, we generate the eligibility report in two different formats. We do the PDF and XLS. Now, in the past, our XLS, Excel versions basically, they have not been so clean, and you'll be delighted to know that in this report, we finally figured out a way to create a clean version of the Excel file that you can easily sort it, and you won't have to delete columns, and it's not going to put things in various columns and all over the place. It's going to be very clean for you to be able to sort, and you can add comments if you want to save it locally to deal with all the issues you want to deal with. So that is going to be very nice for you when if you want to use the XLS version. The PDF version is just the pretty report like you've seen many times in the past. And then we split the report in two sections, and this report is going to very much seem like the CHAMPS difference report in the status mismatch section. It's much the same. It's the same concept as that report. So some of you will be very familiar with how this looks. But we're going to mismatch on quite a few different things. We're going to mismatch based on benefit plan as well as the CHAMPS provider ID. And this chart here shows what the matching ones are. So waiver Y would have to have My Choice MC. We also have an artificial program we've put in there called waiver Y SSP. If your program status has transition or has the SMU status, program status, it's going to be triggered as a waiver Y SSP. And again, it's going to want the same My Choice benefit plan. And then it's also going to compare the provider ID. So for waiver Y and not SSP, it's looking for a 705. If it shows up with a 277, it's going to be a status mismatch. And same vice versa with the SSP. If you have SSP and they have 705, it's going to show up as a status mismatch. The TCM clients, they need to show up with just the Medicaid benefit plan. There's no CHAMPS provider ID associated to that, so that matches if Medicaid shows up. And then the ICOs each have two provider IDs. It doesn't matter which one, but as long as they match up to the program based on those provider IDs that are listed, then they'll be matched. Otherwise, they'll be mismatched. So this is a very long list in here, but we gave you everything. And then anything else, program status wise, like we said, let you send the waiver pending, and we let you send the NIFTY. Those guys don't have a match because they're not Medicaid supposedly. So those people, if you submit them, they will always show up in a mismatch section if the eligibility changed, to become eligible, or they're going to show in the match section if there still is no Medicaid for them, because no Medicaid is a match for those as well. And then the other thing I'll show you some examples of, but be careful of the date ranges on the reports, because those are fake date ranges based on a combination of the COMPASS status combined with the CHAMPS status start and stop dates. So you need to make sure that you review the full person and make the right date changes. It's just telling you on the report which ones don't match or which ones match, not that those are separate status lines by any means. And we'll show you a few examples of that. So we've created some examples outside of even the user guide one to better illustrate this. I'm going to start with a simple one. This one here, this is for the first batch we sent for waiver I, okay? So we went in here and we de-identified the data. I had to leave date of birth in there because you'll see in future examples, we can't tell if they're the same person. So I left that in there so that we could see that they're the same person. But you'll see here that it shows you a start and stop date, 11/1 until January 10th, and the status is waiver I, but it's showing up in the status mismatch section up here because the CHAMP data shows that they're my choice, and it shows that they're this payer ID. So that means to you that, oh, okay, so they're now eligible for that period. You could go update your records because you expected them to be eligible, or you need to get a hold of your local DHS office and tell them, no, you need to take that off. That shouldn't be there, okay? And this is another thing, I have a check mark here to remind me that this is very important to pay attention to, because when you're going to change somebody off the system, be it waiver pending or waiver I, make sure you're looking at the payer ID that got assigned, because the 277 indicates that you need to have transition or SMU assigned to it, or you have to contact DHS to get it corrected back to the regular ID. And so you want to watch that when you're doing that, because otherwise it's going to cause a mismatch of a different sort and when you rerun the report later. So when you want to change them, make sure you're looking for that. But these three are all different examples of waiver I that actually became my choice. Let me scroll down to the next page. Okay. So the next page, it starts the status matches. Okay. So page one is just the, page one until whenever is the mismatches, and then they start a new page for the matches. So in this example here, waiver I has no CHAMP benefit, so that's a match because it shouldn't. We don't expect them to. And then, but now we're seeing that we have waiver Y showing up in here, and you're probably going, why am I showing waiver Y? I only sent waiver I. Well, that person for the period you submitted for your waiver I participants also had waiver Y periods. So we send those along for the ride and get back the whole period. So waiver Y shows up here as a status match with my choice, and it's got a 705. And then you'll see the waiver Y SSP has a 277 number to it, okay? Now, these three that are in blue, that's all the same person. So you can see here that from 11/1 to 11/29, we have a match on waiver Y SSP with the 277, good. And then you have them as waiver I for the first 20 days of December, and then it goes to care management. And all those are good. That's fine. You know, you don't have to worry about the matches. The matches are mostly there to show you that, yes, you did submit it, and yes, CHAMPS, this is what they said at the time. And that's kind of like a little bit of proof for you in the future if things happen on bridges or CHAMPS that stuff drops off. You will have these reports in, you know, forever that is going to show you that they did say they were eligible during that period. So that's part of the reason why we left the status matches on here. And then waiver I and waiver P, either no CHAMPS benefit or having the Medicaid CHAMPS benefit will be a match, because it's fine that they're Medicaid, they're not on a different program. So those are okay to be on the matches as well. So this is just some examples of what the matches would look like. I'm going to show you a different example now of the waiver Y report that we submitted. So for waiver Y, here we have an example where we have waiver Y SSP for the period of February 7th to February 26th, but CHAMPS just has them as Medicaid. So they're missing the benefit plan for my choice. So that'd be something that you would need to look into, because they probably should be pending until they fix that. And then here's an example of waiver Y and nothing. They don't even have Medicaid. So that's definitely an issue. This one here is an example of a mismatch between waiver Y SSP, as in you have either transition or SMU and Compass, but in CHAMPS, it's got the 705 number assigned. So that would mean that you're going to be getting paid at the lower rate for him until that gets corrected. So that's why that's on the mismatch. There's also a mismatch here for care management. Care management period, you're showing that, the CHAMPS is showing, I'm sorry, that they're my choice for that period. So that would be another thing that you need to correct. Whoops, I went too far here, got a little too excited. And then waiver I is on this for the same reason. During your waiver and eligible period, they're showing my choice for this date range. Now, you may have had waiver I farther out before or after, but just this period is of which that they say is my choice. So you have to pay attention to the date range. It may not be your entire waiver I date range, for instance, that needs to get corrected. All right, let's go to the next example on this set. So then we have status matches on these ones. So for SSP, it's showing a 277 number, all good. For waiver Y, we're showing a 75, all good, and so on and so forth on down this report. So those are just the examples I want to show you. Okay, so then the last example, which is the more complicated one, is we sent waiver pending, we sent TCM, and we sent a bunch of ICOs, okay? And so for this first example here, the person we have in our system as Molina PCS, and Champs has nothing, okay? So that's a problem. This is another example where Champs just says that they're Medicaid, but they don't have them enrolled in Molina, so that would be another issue. This one is the same one underneath it. Then a waiver pending example, waiver pending, it's my choice. Oh, that's good news, okay? So this is things that you would then know to go flip the switch on them, and that the payer ID is 277, so make sure that you're assigning them as transition or SMU, or get that fixed in the state so they have the right one. This is an example of waiver P with the 705 payer ID, so they will be different looking, but they're a mismatch because now they're my choice. This is an example of, this says AmeriHealth PCS is encompassed, and yes, it's an ICOMC benefit plan, but they have them enrolled in half. So that's an issue that to figure out. Here's another example down below, which is getting covered up by this lovely thing, that they have AmeriHealth PCS and Aetna. So those of you that are serving ICOs, I have a feeling you're going to have to see a lot of this because in our testing we saw a lot of it. So you're going to want to run these and see that information. And some of you right now are probably going, okay, I understand the ICO bit, but a lot of this pending business and the waiver information, well, aren't we already getting that? And yes, you are. You're getting that through the Wayland eligibility files that he's sending us weekly. We're processing, and we gave you those scripts to find out issues where pending became eligible, or they're eligible in Champs and not in My Choice, et cetera. And those are still valid. Those are, the reason that came about was because in this format that we're doing here, we are limited to the year date range, but Wayland's able to send us all the waiver information back to the beginning of time. So, which we get till since 10/1/14, but either way, it's a lot more information we're getting there. So for My Choice, this may not be as useful as what you can get now in the Clear Access scripts, but you still may want to do it, and then you'll have these reports in the NICE format. It's easier to use than using Clear Access, obviously, so that is an advantage. The other advantage to this is that this handles TCM, so you can find out where that is. It also is you submitting the request, so you're getting all the information back on the people that you want to send. So it's not just here's whose waiver, you're going to get the status on anyone. So that you submit within those program ranges. This down here at the bottom is an example of a TCM. Stupid thing. I don't know if you're seeing this, but I have a little pop-up that says whether I'm going to print it or save it or Zoom or whatever. But that TCM one at the bottom is a mismatch because it's not showing any Medicaid over here. Okay, so you can get that access to that information as well. And then let me go to the next page for matches. So matches are great. You got Molina, it says Molina. Waiver pending, you have nothing. That's fine because we're still waiting. Gosh darn it. Getting all over the place here. Trying to move. Then TCM is a match when it has Medicaid. So that's an example of that. So those are all fine and dandy. There is no payer ID comparison within Molina. We don't care which one they are of the two that are in that chart that I showed you in the user guide, because one's an auto enroll and one's the regular enroll, so it doesn't really matter the difference to us. But if you wanted to know the difference, you could tell based on that payer ID, okay? At least for now until they do the changeover with enrollment. They probably, I assume like waiver, they're going to get rid of that dual payer ID for Molina and whatnot. But we'll see when we get there, and we can adjust as needed. Okay, let me just look through my notes and see what else I wanted to share with you about this. These reports examples are also, well, these particular examples are not in the user guide, but there's other examples in the user guide. I did this for the webinar purposes only, which this webinar is being recorded, and we will be sending out a link to this recording shortly this afternoon, hopefully. So that anybody that couldn't attend or that you want to watch it again, you'll have that ability on your own schedule. So these reports are available right here in the user guide. And then it talks about investigating the issues, because it depends on what the situation is. You may need to make corrections in the program status and compass. You may need to notify the MDHHS field staff to make changes. Anything that's on here that's a status mismatch could cause claims or encounter rejections due to eligibility, or cause you incorrect capitation payments if they don't get resolved. So all of this information is good to know sooner than later and get fixed sooner than later. You'll get a little preview into the future too, because you can find out now what they are today versus waiting for capitation payment to tell you that they've got it assigned wrong. And then it also talks about don't use the dates shown on the report for status changes. These dates may not be, because we're only sending, for instance, 1 month, like these ones up here that are showing at the top page, we just sent July. So just because it says July 1 to July 31st, they're waiver Y and my choice, doesn't mean that's only the date range that they're waiver Y and my choice. That's just the period that got sent. As well as any mismatches in between, like there could be an interruption of the month, either on your end or on the state's end, and that date range is just the difference between the two. It's not the full date range of what needs to be in our program status. So make sure you're verifying all of that. Okay? I think that's it for the user guide. So that's the user guide. That is the eligibility request. Are there any questions? And I can unmute you for them. I don't know if I have people with hands raised yet already. Let me go in order here. Cindy, I've unmuted you. Did you have a question?
No, I just was thanking you for cleaning up the Excel report option. That's tremendous for all of us, I'm sure.
Oh, great. Glad to hear it. Thanks. Stacy, I saw your hand raised too. Did you have any questions?
Yeah, I had a question about the status match report. Are those always going to be stored then, kind of like the claims reports or the encounters reports? So when we submit these, I guess, batches, are those status match reports going to be stored?
They are going to be there, but if you make program status changes and run it again, those program status changes will be reflected on it. So, but the CHAMPS data is going to stay stagnant.
It will.
Yep.
Okay.
Forever and ever and ever.
That's what I'm more concerned about. Okay.
So you'd have to resubmit it to get a new eligibility to find out that it changed, you know, by doing it again. Yep.
Okay. And how long, how many, I guess, how much are you guys going to store? How long would we have access to them?
Right now, we have no intentions of ever deleting any of them. They're going to stay.
Okay.
We're already sending this data now and have been with claims and encounters for years, and we've not had an issue with storage. So this is just a continuation of that and allowing you to have it. So I don't think that we'll have an issue.
Okay. And then on the Excel report, I ditto Cindy's thoughts on that. Any chance that the ones in reports portal are going to be updated?
Well, I hope so. When we have to do the major rewrite when we get rid of MISIS, I'm hoping that we can do that because I'm saying this, but I don't really know this, but it made it sound like the changes that were made were not all that complicated to make it pretty for Excel. So I would assume at that point that would be when we'd revisit making those all nice.
Okay, great, thank you.
We're rewriting them all anyway. Yep, thank you. Sherry, did you have a question? I unmuted you, but maybe you're muted on your end, Sherry. Okay. Well, if you have questions too, you can always send them to the help desk or give us a call today. Are there any other questions out there for us? Okay. I'm not hearing any other questions, so we will go ahead and end this webinar, and then we will get, whoops, I just got a question, I see. If we're waiting on capitation for someone, do we have to continue to submit that month or just go forward? I'm assuming you mean you're waiting for in the encounters? We don't submit capitation, we're waiting for it. Okay, so for encounters, if we continue to submit, yes, if you can continue to submit that month, there's no issue with that. The encounters are totally separate from this process. It uses some of the same background with the 270 and 271 process, but the information is segmented, so anybody that's already had processes in started, they're fine, they can continue and keep going if they would like. But I do want to note that something that did change too is that we are now collecting all of the different types of benefit plans and, well, all the benefit plans really, that the state sends now on people. Before, in the past, we limited it to the ones we cared about, but now we're storing all of the people that have an NEMT benefit plan, anybody that's in the nursing home, anybody that's in hospice, of course the ICOs. There's some other dental things and fee-for-service things and PIHP, blah, 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 blah. And if you want access to those, they will show in the CHAMPS insurance view in Clear Access. And I believe, and I will send a message about this because I'm pretty sure it's also going to show up on that TPL from CHAMPS scripts that you guys have had for a while that some of you probably aren't running, that shows you where the insurances that that person has. And that will just expand to show these as well. But I will double check on that and shoot everybody an email about that once I can confirm that. I haven't had a chance to do that. A question about where they pull the CHAMPS provider ID from. The CHAMPS ID is coming straight from whatever, I assume what gets put in bridges. And then there has to be the 277 or the 705 for my choice. So we're just getting that from CHAMPS when we process it, and it's the same as, you know, has been. That hasn't changed with this process. It's just we're showing it. I see some other questions here I missed because I have a tiny little area. From the eligibility area or the LOCD area, it'd be the eligibility areas where the CHAMPS provider IDs are coming from, not LOCD. We don't have any information regarding LOCD electronically. Okay. Everything else is regarding, you could hear me. I don't know why I didn't see those earlier. That's very strange because they were not showing up. Okay. LOCD, is that going to come? No. The state cannot send that to us right now, and even if they did, it would be such a mess because they have so many different date ranges in their system that, you know, if they sent us those, we wouldn't be able to calculate a due date for you because it's so arbitrary and everybody's different, and so we don't want to be responsible for giving you a wrong LOC due date. So we won't be having that information. And so, I mean, they're not even sending it. They have no plans to send it to us. So that information, because they can't figure out what date they put in the file anyway. So, so that's still going to, unfortunately, have to be a manual process. Unless they, you know, they can get rid of it, you know, that'd be great. But we can all hope and pray. Any other questions? Okay. All right. If you have any other further questions, please don't hesitate to contact us through the help desk or call us, and I'm sure we'll be hearing from you soon. Thank you.